Hello everyone. In today's video, we are going to see what is JWT. JWT stands for JSON Web Token, and why we need to use this, that we are going to see. First, we will understand what these JWT tokens consist. Here we see this JWT consists header, payload, and signature. So there are three parts in this token. It is separated with dot. First is a header, then is a payload, and then is a signature. So we to authenticate any web request on the server side, we will use this JWT, and that will give us a response based on the this JWT token we have provided in the API. Why we need to use this JWT? For example, in the traditional application, we are using session. So session required to save data, and it is this type of mechanism doesn't allow multiple platform or application to easily authenticate user with single session. Also, the server need to keep session state and data in its memory. As compared to session, JWT tokens are stateless, meaning that session information is not stored server side. On top of that, great gains in terms of save memory on the server. JWT token can be used to authenticate user on multiple applications. Means we can use this JWT authentication on the multiple application. To do that, the different application will need to share the same private key. Here we are using private key, same private key, and sign and verify tokens. So user will therefore be able to authenticate one single time on the application that manages user account, and seamlessly use other application that use the same private key and verify the token validity. So basically, this JSON Web Token are a token generated by server upon user authentication on web application. Let's see here one example. Here, if we see, we send the login request, username, password, and it will create one JWT token on the server, and that token it will be returned. And for the second time, if we want any API to be authenticated, we pass that JWT token in the header, and then it will validate and it will return us a response. So similarly, these tokens are then sent on the every HTTP request, which allow the server to authenticate the user. To ensure integrity, information contained in the token is signed by a private key owned by the server. When the server gets the token back from the client, it just has to compare the signature sent by the client with one of it will generate with the private key. So it will compare the signature and it will generate the private key. If signature are identical, then token is valid. So it will validate that token. Let's see in depth with Spring Security how it will work. So first we will make one HTTP request. Here HTTP request is sent. JWT authentication filter will validate that the request is valid or that JSON token is valid. If it is invalid, it will send. If we try to make any request, it will send invalid JWT token. It will then pass user details service. If token is valid, JWT service will check security config. There, based on that, it will authenticate the API and send the response back to the user. Then let's see with one example here. I have created this one application here. So if you see similar package structure, you can create config, controller, entity, filter, repo, repository, response, service, and utility. Here three classes is main important that we are going to see in this. First, we will understand security config, what it will do. So security config and then filter, JWT request filter we will understand, and then JWT utils. So first we will understand JWT filter, what it will do. JWT request filter is a custom security filter in Spring Boot application. It is responsible for processing JWT token in incoming HTTP requests. So JWT util used to work with JWT token extraction and validation, and custom user detail service retrieve user details. This custom user detail service will retrieve user details, and JWT util will extract the username from the JSON token and it will validate that token. So basically this JWT request filter we will use to validate requests. It will validate the JSON token. So then it will extract the username from the JWT. If the username is present and the user is not already authenticated, it load the user details. Then validate token, and if valid, set the authentication in the security context folder. So the user is considered authenticated. Proceed with the filter chain for further processing. This filter runs every request and ensure that a JWT based authentication is applied in the each request. So here if we see, it will validate each time each request based on the token extracting details. Then if we see security config class, so this security config class will authenticate requests. So request matcher dot slash first it will authenticate API, then dot any request is will be authenticated. So if we made any request that is authenticated with the security config class. Then authentication manager is here. Authentication manager provide the authentication manager bean for managing authentication needed by the Spring Security. So first, this security config class will disable CSRF protection since we are using JWT. Here if we see, it is disabled the CSRF. So we are using here JWT. Then allow unrestricted access to the slash authenticate endpoint. So it will allow unrestricted authentication to slash authenticate endpoint. Then secure all endpoint requiring authentication. Here we see dot any request will be authenticated and it will add filter. So add JWT filter to process JWT before username password authentication filter. So it will filter each request username and based on that, it will do filter internal method we have used here. This method will validate that token is valid or not. Then inside if we go JWT util, so this will we use to generate token. So basically we use here JWT secret key and expiration time we have set. If we go inside application.properties file, here I have set one expiration time for 1 hour and I am using my secret key. With the help of this my secret key, it will generate one token. So if we go inside JWT util, it will first generate token based on the username and it will set issue date, expiration date, and then token will be signed with this one algorithm. Then extract claims method is used to set signing key for the secret key and pass claim JWT. So it will extract username it will check token is expired, then it will validate the token. So these are the method used in JWT util class that we can use to generate token and validates. Then next, if we see here inside authentication controller, we have one endpoint authenticate request. So it will load user and username based on the database. If we go inside custom user detail service, so it will load username based on the database. I have created one database here. Inside database, I have added one test user and password. So we will try to access this authenticate API. Then first we will generate this first we will generate one token with authentication API, and then we will try to access this main controller API, which is welcome controller. So here I have used some classes, user entity I have used. In that I have forfeit ID, username, password, and enable. Then user repository to get user details from the repository. Then authentication request will have username and password. This we will pass with the postman, and then response we will have JWT tokens. A service custom user detail service is used to load username and username details from the database. So let's run this application and we will see the response for this. So our application is started on port number 8080. We will try to access this endpoint welcome controller. So let's go inside our postman. Here I have one API. I just use HTTP localhost 8080. We will try to hit this request. So it will be 403 forbidden because we don't have access to access these resources on the server. So to access this, we need to generate one token. So for that, I am using one authentication API. Inside this, I have test user and password that I have same in the database, test user and password. Then we will hit this. So we will able to generate one JSON web token so that we will pass. So here we have got one token. Based on this, we will pass this token to the welcome controller inside, go inside this and bearer token. So basically I will paste it here and we will send this request. So now we should be able to access this endpoint. So we have successfully secured this endpoint with the JWT authentications. That's all from this video, guys. I hope you understand this. If you have any question or queries, please comment out. I will try to answer. Thanks for watching these videos. If you like the content of the videos, please like, share, subscribe to the channel. Thank you, guys.